Fantastic. Right, folks, I think we're almost at the top of the hour, a few seconds to go. So welcome to the closing session of what's been an absolutely amazing day today. We've had 9 speakers prior to Oscar during the course of the day from around the world. Oscar himself is a world traveler, not only on the water, but off the water and in the air from time to time. I think oscillates between Portugal these days, Oscar, I'm not mistaken, and Cape Town. So yeah, another world traveler and a very appropriate one, I think, to finish off today, a world champion. And those of you who don't know Oscar, I'm not too sure where you've been for the last 40 years, because you should know about Oscar by now. But if you don't, he's been a 12 times world champion paddler. He's a very determined, positive person who doesn't believe in worrying. He just believes in doing your best at 100%. He's an absolute water sport legend in South Africa and around the world. Perhaps best known for his exploits in the fields of surf ski and paddling. He's began his canoeing career at school. List of his accomplishments include 12 times World Molokai Surfski Champion, multiple winner of the Umkomaas River Marathon, and Olympic canoe team captain and participant representing South Africa in the 1992 Barcelona Olympics. At the age of 1979, at the age of 15, Oscar made headlines in South Africa when he won the junior and the senior Ironman titles on the same day. In 1983, he won the storied Molokai World Championship open ocean race for the very first time. And he won his 12th title at the tender age of 49. Now, at the age of 57, he's entered a different race, and that is a race against cancer. And Oscar's here to tell us about his story and overcoming the odds. So, Oscar, I think no further ado, I'm going to hand over to you on that note.
Thank you very much. And this is my first ever virtual trade fair. I've been to many trade fairs around the world. I spent my life, started Epic Kayaks and then with Nello Kayaks, and I've been all over the world, but I've never done a virtual trade fair. And I look forward to imparting a bit of knowledge. And hopefully the most important thing that I want you to take away from this is that overcoming the odds is something that everybody has to do every day just about. And I've been doing it for a long time. It's a little bit difficult doing it virtually. I don't know what slides coming up next, but we'll see what I can impart. So my whole life has been about overcoming the odds. Since I was a young child, it all started, let's have a look. Let me see. Okay. It all started at age 15. At age 15, again, no 15-year-olds should win junior and senior Ironman. I mean, remember, Ironman, when I did it, there wasn't such a thing as the Hawaiian Ironman with cycling and running and swimming. My Ironman was going through the surf, crashing and swimming through the surf, going through the board, through the surf, and a surf ski. And you had to do it one after each other. And at age 15, I managed to win junior and senior Ironman. Again, you can imagine, what is a 15-year-old beating 26-year-olds? At the time, there were a lot of South African and international lifesavers out there that were much better than me, and they were supposed to beat me, but against all odds, I managed to win that. And it was funny. You can see that was the newspaper report. I was sitting in my lounge in Westville, Trivenel, Westville, Natal. There I was sitting there, and I was watching the news. And can you believe, on the news, Michael de Morgan, those people that at our age would know Michael de Morgan, came on and said, "You won't believe what's happened in Australia. Grant Kenny has won the junior and senior Ironman in Australia." I said, "Hey, I did it a month before." And as you can see, my advert was like, my story was like in the classifieds. So that's how it all started. This guy, Grant Kenny, won the junior and senior Ironman and became one of the biggest sporting icons in Australia. And he is still to this day. A nice guy. But can you imagine, I wanted to race this guy. Grant Kenny, there he is. He's got all the accolades. At the time, he was already a private pilot. He had all the money, and I was still at home struggling to make ends meet, going in my 50cc motorbike, and he was on airplanes. Now, interesting that, remember what apartheid did for us. Again, overcoming these. Apartheid, I couldn't race against him. We tried everything. So I didn't put it down. I said, I'm going to beat this guy or race this guy one of these years. We tried everything. He was going to come to South Africa to race from Port Elizabeth to East London. I was going to go there, but nothing worked. Apartheid killed that. In the prime of my life, I couldn't race against this guy, Grant Kenny, who had actually become a hero and made lots of money. But I carried on my life. That's the difference. You've got to carry on life. These things hit you. And again, another thing, I was doing the Paulus to East London race, which is 240 kilometers. And this guy, Tony Scott, was the hero. Remember, I'm 16 years old and Tony Scott's about 32 years old, and he's won it 5 or 6 times in a row. And here I come, this young guy, upstart, and can you believe it? I managed to beat him again. Again, completely against all odds. There was this guy who's won it 4 or 5 times. Here I came and I managed to beat him. So at no stage did I ever let this get me down, that I couldn't race this guy, Grant Kenny. So I kept on racing and doing many different things. The one thing came up about 5 years afterwards, in 1983. I got this opportunity and they said, no, Grant Kenny's coming to Hawaii. I said, here's my opportunity to race against Grant Kenny. 4 or 5 years later, they said he was going to come to this race. So you can imagine I start preparing, and again, preparation is the most important thing. I prepared and start training, and then I hear rumors that he might not come, but again, I'm going to go to Hawaii. And funny enough, in the team that we flew to Hawaii, it was my father, my brother, and we took off from Durban, and it's only 24 hours flying, and we arrive in Hawaii. Can you imagine? I arrive in Hawaii and so excited. We all know what Hawaii is like. Everybody dreams to go there. There I was in 1983 going to Hawaii. I get into the bus, first the wiki bus, then the bus, and I said, hey, I asked the driver, I'm very inquisitive like most things. I said, listen, bus driver, where are we going? He says, no, you won't believe Hawaii is the best place in the world. We're going to get laid. I said, what? In front of my brother, my father. This is not cricket. But as I'll show you, that is a flower lay, okay? That's what we got laid with, okay? Not your normal lay that you all have been thinking about. So interesting enough, I kept on racing and going back, I can't see what slides are coming up, so sorry if I'm out of time. So what happened while I was racing, and I always used to hear about Grant Kenny, how good he was, how he's going to beat me, all this kind of stuff. And I just kept on focusing on this race. So the race happened, and he wasn't there, the race that we flew over, but I heard about this race called the Molokai Channel. This guy, Grant Kenny, had won it 4 years in a row. He'd won it 4 years in a row and was definitely going to come back. So I had to make a big decision. Again, a big decision. Now, remember, this guy's won it 4 years. I didn't even know the course, knew nothing. I knew nobody in Hawaii. I had to make a decision. It was in April, and the Molokai was in October. I was playing rugby. I was in university on a rugby scholarship, of all things, for Natal University, and I had to make a decision. Give up my BCom that I'd started and race against this guy, Grant Kenny, that all my life I wanted to beat this guy. I hated him. He probably didn't even know who I was, but I hated this guy and I wanted to beat him. So I had to make a big decision whether to stay in Hawaii and give up my future BCom. I wanted to become a BCom CA. That was my goal, but I had to give it up. And I gave it up and I said, okay, I'm staying here to race this guy, Grant Kenny. So you can imagine I was training all the time. And every time I do a race and they'd say, no, Grant Kenny would have beaten me by further. All these things happened and carried on. I thought, okay, well, this guy's really good. So you can imagine everybody has to have an escort boat. It's between the island of Molokai and Oahu, 52 kilometers. So it's a long way and there's big ocean. Everybody's got to have an escort boat because if you fall off or you lose your ski, you'll end up in Fiji or you'll be lost. So you can imagine on the budget that I had a rubber duck. He had like a QE2, you know? So he had a much bigger budget than me. So you can imagine the day before the race, we fly over in a little airplane. You can see the channel of bones. The Kaiwi channel was really huge. And I was looking down and thinking, gee, this is going to be a lot of fun. I'd never done the race. I'd done nothing. I went over there and I still hadn't met this guy, Grant Kenny. He didn't come to the race briefing. He was an enigma. I didn't know who this guy was. And all I know, he was like 3 months younger than me. I get over to Molokai, you stay over the night, and in the early morning you wake up and you get ready to paddle across this channel, 52 kilometers. The wind's howling that night, and I look for this guy, Grant Kenny. So there I'm going along, looking for this guy, Grant Kenny. Eventually I find him, as you saw before. He's much shorter than me, But again, he'd won it 4 years in a row, and there's no way this guy from South Africa, who doesn't even know the course, is going to beat him. So off we go, we paddle along, and you can imagine, it's not like the Comrades. The Comrades marathon's easy. You can see the next door guy, you can see. So my tactic was to follow him till I could see the other island. Understand, you can't, from Molokai to Oahu, you can't actually see the other island. So it's quite difficult. So after an hour, I could see where I was going to. I thought, okay, I'm actually doing this easy. I'm going to take it up. I took up the pace, and off you go. And 3 hours, 23 minutes later, I'm looking to see if there's another Surfski, because you don't know whether you're in front or behind, because you don't see your opposition. So it's a very difficult sport. It's individual, but you can't see anybody else there. But as luck happened, I finished in Hawaii Kai, and there was no Grant Kenny. 15 minutes later comes Grant Kenny. 15 minutes later. So I beat Grant Kenny, but again, overcoming this odds that he had won it 4 years. I beat him by 15 minutes. And like all Australians, they always say, oh no, and if you read the article, they say, oh no, I had this problem and that problem and that problem. So again, he had all these excuses. And funny enough, for the next 7 years, he had these excuses. I kept on beating him. I kept on beating him, and he had the bigger excuse. 7 years in a row. And you can imagine, does anybody know who was handing me this prize?
Looks like Tom
Come on,
Selleck.
who's
Tom Selleck.
hey?
Tom
You
Selleck.
can write in the chats there.
Yeah.
That's Tom Selleck. Yeah, 1983, Magnum PR, Tom Selleck, 100%. And he gave me a hell of a nice guy. I met him and I coached him. In fact, he bought a paddle. The guy who sold him the paddle still kept the check, and he kept it in his office. So again, a guy with lots of money still didn't have to pay for his paddle. But I got to meet him, a nice guy, and I kept on mastering it. So I won. You can imagine how nice this place is, Molokai. And then, guess what happens? After 7 years, they banned me from the race. Can you imagine banning you from the race again for apartheid? Now remember, I've got a German passport. They wouldn't let me race. So there I was, flummoxed. What do I do now? I've won it 7 years in a row. I'm going fast, I'm training. And they say, sorry, you can't go. You train in South Africa. No South Africans allowed in the race. You're out. Argued, tried everything, nothing worked. So again, I didn't say, oh, see, I'm not going to go and win the Molokai. Not going to get my 8th title. I said, okay, I'm going to take up golf. Golf. That's a bit different from paddling and swimming and water polo and all these other sports. I took up golf. And I took a bet to get from 24 to scratch in 1 year. And you can imagine how much effort it took. I used to be at that golf course. That's Royal Durban Golf Course. I used to be at that golf course at 4:30 in the morning. Remember, I'm not a professional athlete. I still have to work. I used to get there at 4:30 in the morning. And the only part I could practice was chipping and putting, because there was a light on the putting green and the bunker. So I practiced and I practiced. On weekends, I used to spend between 12 and 18 hours a day to do this feat. But again, didn't mope about not doing paddling. I gave up the paddling and went into golf. What happened, I was in Cape Town, funny enough, not too far away. I'm in Camps Bay now. And I was playing golf at Royal Cape. I was playing with a guy called Graham Beck. Most people know him for his champagne, but he was one of the biggest oil barons in the world. Very wealthy man. I was playing with him. He said, listen, Oscar, I can see you can play this game, and I'm quite impressed how well you play today. Listen, I'll do this for you. I will pay for you, your wife Claire, and at the time my son Luke, to go to Dave Ledbetter for 1 year, all expenses paid, everything, for you to become a professional golfer. And I said, okay. And he said, all you have to do is go and play at Clovelly, which is opposite to Fishhook, and break par. And I said, this is something out of this world. From being a professional paddler to become a professional golfer. And you won't believe what happened. The day before I was going to play this round of golf with Graham, his mother died, and in the Jewish faith, they call off all bets, and all bets were off. So you can imagine how lucky Tiger Woods and Ernie Els were, because I would have been a pro golfer and they would have been taking a lot of strain against me. So again, so that was a chapter in my life. And again, over all odds, that's what happens. Things happen in life, things happen in business, things happen in your family. You've got to just override it and keep on going. Life's a long journey, and mine's been particularly long. So after the golf, I was back to paddling. And again, can you believe it? I was in this isolation all the time. And one of the things that eluded me was the Olympics. And you see Chalupsky goes for gold. And they said, when Nelson Mandela was released in 1992, they said, no, or 1990, they said, you can go to the Olympics. And can you believe it? Again, against all odds, we went to the Olympics. And again, I was a bit disappointed. Believing me, we made the semifinals, which is no great shakes. I set my goals very high. I managed to only get to the semifinals in the K4, but I did captain the team. I did meet Nelson Mandela, nicest guy you'll ever meet. And it was another overcoming the odds to go to the Olympics. And I was the first ever team. My father gave up his German nationality, and how ironic is this? He gave up his German nationality to compete for South Africa at the Olympics. And to this day, he can't get his German passport back. He can speak German, he's born there, and he can't get his passport. We've got German passports, and he can't get it back because he gave it up to race in the Olympics. So after the Olympics, I raced back to Hawaii. This is a race, that guy on the right is a guy called Nathan Bagley. And that's me on the left, racing in huge ocean swells, if you can see that. It was a neck and neck race. This guy, Nathan Bagley, had won a couple of gold medals, a couple of silver medals at the Olympics, and I'd given up the Olympic dream. I was getting too old. I wanted to just race in the ocean. And it's funny, this is when I come close to my competitors. I'm a very competitive person, as you know, but I'm also very kind. So what I normally do, when I catch these guys up, normally they're younger, so they're in front of me, I catch them up. And this Nathan Bagley on this occasion said, listen, I'm going to break the record. I'm going to win the race, and you're going to come nowhere, Oscar. And he said that in front of me on the TV. I said, okay, we'll see. So when I came up to him, and this is about 2 kilometers from the finish, I said, Nathan, you won't believe it. You're paddling so well, keep it up. And I went past him. And that's when he put his paddles down, and I managed to beat him. But the funniest thing is, he ended up second, and I was wondering why he was so close to me. I only won by a few seconds. He got busted for steroids and all the drugs you can actually believe. So that's the only reason why he got there so close. So I still kept on pursuing this dream of racing in Hawaii. And there you see, I won my 10th against all odds again. Again, I'm getting on in age, but I still love going to Hawaii, and I still always believe when I go into any race, when I go and do anything, I always believe I can win. Even if I haven't done all the training and everything, but I really am always positive that I'm going to be at the top of the podium. So after winning some and losing some, of course, life's not about winning all the time. Obviously, I lost a few in the way. One of the strangest losses I had is that I went for insurance medical in Hawaii, and they said, no, Oscar, you've had a heart attack. I said, what? He says, no, I've picked up your ECG, you've had a heart attack. So I sent them all my medical records from Hawaii to South Africa, and they said, and again, like most doctors, they don't commit 100%. They said, well, maybe, I said, how hard can I go? He says, yeah, you can go sort of hard. I said, how hard can I go? So I ended up coming third, and Herman, my brother, won it. So we kept it in the Chalupsky family. Carrying on.
And Clint Robinson was coming on me so
now
fast.
This is going for my 12th
big gut
here.
And made it.
Here he comes. Now, he'll be a 12-time winner of the Molokai World Championships. Here we go, folks. 11-time, now 12-time World Championships, 32 miles. 3:23. He's going to beat last year's record. Oscar Chalupsky from South Africa. Olympian. Right on, Oscar. On an epic kayak, one of our great sponsors here. Awesome job. And coming in second place, Clint Robinson, last year's winner. And he beat the time from last year as well. He did 3:31, and now he's coming in at 3:24. Good job, guys. Awesome, boys.
Okay, so that was my 12th win. Now, you can imagine going into that, they said, you're too fat, too old, there's no way you can win at age 49. It's impossible. Nobody in the world in any sport has ever won at age 49. And this is one of the quotes from one of my fellow competitors. He ended up coming 7th, and he's about 15 years younger than me. And again, that's the self-belief. Every time I line up, I think I can win. And even at age 49, I managed to pull this off, which most people say, how do you do it? And at this stage of my life, I do something that nobody else does. It's called practice makes, and what do you say? Practice makes, no, practice doesn't make perfect. Practice makes permanent. I want to leave something with you there, is that if you practice, excuse the language, shit, you are going to get shit. And there's so many people don't look for advice and don't get the best coaches in the world. And that's why they practice bad habits and they make them permanent. And me as a coach, takes me 1 or 2 months to undo all these bad habits, because practice doesn't make perfect unless you've got the perfect practice. Okay. So that was interesting. There I was going along, winning my 12th. Funny enough, I won my the last international race I won at age 55. Also a 52-kilometer race in Guadeloupe. The guy came second, was 25. And you can imagine how cross he was. How can this old guy beat me at age 55? Then I went along and I was having a lot of back pain. I was feeling sore and I flew to Australia. Here's me on the very left. You can see orange. Everybody's got green and orange, but I'm sort of on the left. You can sort of see me. This is the Perth Doctor, which is a big race week in Australia. When I was flying down to Australia from Portugal, building up to this, I had this pain and I thought, oh, and I was going to physio every single day. And thank goodness physios aren't that expensive in Portugal. Every day I was at the physio. He's trying acupuncture, he's trying everything, and nothing worked. Flew to Australia. When I was in Australia, I couldn't sleep. The pain was so intense. And I went to the best Australian physician there, and they said, no, what happens is when your body cools down, the nerves pinch, and that's what is probably happening. So they're trying to pull my ribs apart. But the only thing that gave me pain relief was if I paddled and ran and swam and did everything. And I felt good. Night was hell. I actually eventually had to stand up sleeping, standing up, because I couldn't sleep. It was so painful. I did this race. This is one of the biggest races. I've won it 3 times in Australia, from Rottnest Island. Those guys in Australia know about, in Perth, from Rottnest Island to Sorrento Beach. And every time when I started paddling, the pain would go away, and I think, thank you very much. Obviously, I hadn't trained up to it, because this pain had been lingering for like 5 months. And again, what's pain? It's very subjective. I said, oh, well, pain, people must have these kind of pains. Doesn't worry me. I'll just carry on. I started this race, and you have to catch a ferry from Hillary Harbour to Rottnest, and it's like a 45-minute ferry ride. And when I got off the ferry and jumped in my surfski, paddled along, I said, hey, the pain's not going away today. What is going on here? So I had my slops in my surfski, so I gave it to my mate, and I went up to this big boat that I gave my slops to, and I said, I don't think I should be paddling. The pain hasn't gone away. I don't think I should paddle. But you know, the wind was blowing, and look at that beautiful ocean. And what the hell, I've come a long way. I said, oh, okay, I'm going to race. And I just took off slowly and paddled, and I finished about 30th, where I normally would have finished about 7th to 10th against all these kids. There's about 450 people. So 30th is not bad. And I still couldn't understand this pain. So that night, I finished that race on Saturday. Saturday night, fly to back to Porto, and the Monday I said, listen, I want another MRI. They'd already taken an MRI on the lower back, showed nothing. I said I want it slightly higher up. And then I got the news. And I got this news, and have a look at that. You can see there's a tumor on my spinal cord, and it's eaten away at my spine, and you can see it's pushing, and you can see it there again. There's my spinal cord, the tumor. You can see how big it was, and there, a very good illustration of how the tumor is pushing onto my spinal cord, and that was giving me the pain. So you can imagine when I walked out, I was doing the MRI. You know, you're supposed to lie there for 15 minutes still. I couldn't lie for 15 minutes. I had to stop and come out 3 times for them to get this image. So when I got this on the 25th of November, I'll never forget, 2019, so it's not long ago, I sent the images from the MRI to my friends, and they said, you've got 4 to 6 months. Because this is a secondary lesion or tumor, and the main one is scattered all over your body. You've got no chance. And while I was talking to the doctor, my wife was sitting there next to me, and big deep breath, hold on. It was her 60th birthday the next day. So again, excuse me. She said, I'm not having a 60th. I'm not doing anything. I can't sleep. I can't do anything. No way. I said, excuse me, I'm still alive and I'm feeling strong. We're going to have the party, 60th birthday party with all our friends, and we're going to be going forward from here. So you can imagine, again, people can give you bad news and say that you can't and you won't. I said, no way. So I had my whole family around for Claire's 60th. There's my son, Luke, and Anna. And we said, we're going to fight this. And the only way to fight this is with support from people around the world. And I made a decision to fly to South Africa. And again, I got 4 to 6 months, which is better than having a heart attack and dying the next day. I had a lot of, I knew I had a lot of life left in me. I was feeling strong, but a lot of pain, a lot of pain. So I flew to South Africa, and I was in Canoe, which is up the road. And 1 hour before I was going to have a biopsy where they're going to operate on me, I had to sign the form. If you die, it's not our problem. If you contract bad diseases from the hospital, it's not our problem. I said, okay, well, let's go. Professor Dunn was the guy who was going to do the operation. And 1 hour before, they said, listen, we've done the tests. You've got bone marrow cancer. And still I thought, okay, well, bone marrow cancer, what the hell? Just 3 months or 3 weeks, and off I can go and start paddling again. Surely. They said, no, it takes a little bit longer than that. So the first thing they had to do, and for those guys who got tattoos, I've actually got 3. They're about this big, 1 on my chest and 2 on my sides. And this is them scanning for the radiation to shrink the tumor. So they had to do radiation first to shrink the tumor so I can get the pain away. I was on morphine the whole time. And I hate taking pills. I hate hospitals. I hate all these things. Never been in them in my life. And it was really tough. So here's the radiation tube where they shot me from both sides, and they burnt my esophagus, and I was very upset because my wine and my beer didn't taste very nice, and I like those things, you know, I like the good things in life, and you should have the good things in life, especially to celebrate winning and doing fantastic things in your life. I always celebrate with a bit of champagne. So I had these 10 radiation, and eventually on Christmas Day, funny enough, so basically a month after I was diagnosed, the pain went away and I stopped the morphine straight away. But again, I started my regime of having 3 hours of chemo every single week for 7 months. And this is the only time these guys, anybody, has managed to keep me still and not talking is when I had the full MRI. You can see I'm strapped there, I can't say anything. So not even Trevor Nell could intimidate me here. I was completely still, and that's how they kept me silent for a little while, to see if the tumor had shrunk enough and see how the chemo was working. Again, 3 hours every week, and a lot of people have problems with chemo. You can speak to some of your mates, they're normally vomiting afterwards and doing. I said, even though I felt nauseous, I said, there's no way I'm going to vomit, there's no way I'm going to feel bad. I'm actually going to do exactly the opposite. I'm going to drink wine every single time I finish my chemo session, which finished at 12 o'clock, had a glass of wine or champagne with people, and made sure that I was feeling positive all the time. Once I had had this chemo for a long time, then I had to have my harvest. This is harvesting stem cells. So the old days, you had to get a donor. I'm lucky and fortunate that I didn't have to have a donor. I was going to give my stem cells or my bone marrow to myself. And basically, you can see that it goes in one side of your arm and out the other side. And you have to lie still in that position for 6 hours while they run your blood through a centrifugal machine there on the side, and they gather about 400 milliliters of stem cells. The only problem is, for 6 hours, I thought, oh, this is easy. Lying like that, what a pleasure. After 2 hours, you start getting stiff. And after 3 hours, lo and behold, you need a wee. Excuse me, you can't move. And that's the first time I ever had a nurse having to help me have a wee, and the first time I never used my hands having a wee, and there was no spillage as well. So don't worry about that. But that was the most embarrassing point of this nurse having to look after me and put my appendage in the bottle, and it was embarrassing, I must admit. But I got 400 milliliters, which is a lot of stem cells, so I was feeling confident. And then the next stage, waiting for 3 or 4 months, and I won't bore you with 3 or 4 weeks, getting in special injections to stimulate the stem cells, and then into hospital. Now, COVID. People don't understand, and we all talk about COVID. I'm sure that all the speakers before were talking about COVID. I was driving from the Canoe to Cape Town to be with you, so I missed a lot of your speakers. But the bottom line, COVID is something that came and dented a lot of people's aspirations of what they're going to do for the year. But some people have actually thrived on it. I know my friends at Missing Link, they've done the best they've ever done. They speech writers and marketers, and they've done the best they've ever done. So that's what you're going to face. So now this is all the drips that you have when you're in the transplant unit, and you have to stay. This machine has to go with you 24 hours a day. So you're going to shower, shave, everything with this on. You never leave it. And when you sleep, so you always have to sleep on your back, and you have to have this all the time. And this is the 40 meters that I used to try and walk every single day, because they said this is tough. And let me tell you, having a stem cell treatment is and bone marrow treatment is really tough. And it took strain. I mean, I couldn't see. I was weak. I couldn't believe that the body could take such strain, because I had 5 days of chemo to kill you, 1 day rest, and then they give you the bone marrow transplant. And then you are completely wasted. So when I came out, and by the way, while I was in there, no visits from my wife, no visits from family. So you got to do it by yourself. And again, this is the power of social media. It was really fantastic to see how many people were behind it. I mean, so many people hide behind cancer. They don't tell people, they keep it quiet. I think you've got to get it out there. Tell the people so that you can get the support from the people. And it's the same thing. When you're in business and you're in trouble, tell the people. There's a lot of people out there who will help you. This is a very sad story again. There I was in this COVID ward. Firstly, I was driving to get my heart transplant. They said, oh, you have to turn back. We've got COVID in the ward. You can't come. We have to sanitize and start again. So that was missed for 3 days. And then there, Anthony, the guy on the right-hand side, he works for Kirsten Bosch Gardens. He was like 3 days ahead of me in his bone marrow transplant, or stem cell transplant. And he caught the COVID. And when I came out, he passed away. Nicest guy I'll ever meet. And that's how close. I dodged a serious bullet there as well. But when I came out, I never thought in my life that I couldn't even walk 800 meters. 800 meters. I could just walk 800 meters, and then this is what happened. This is my skin from the reaction from so much chemo and the transplant. This is what happened to my skin. So you're just getting out, and you're so happy to be out the hospital, and you're eating home food. You got a wife looking after you, which is essential. And this would happen to my legs, my arms, and my back. And I thought, gee, these boys are really testing my resolve. And they really did test my resolve. But again, I pushed through. I eventually was walking 2 hours, 40 minutes. 2 hours, 40 minutes a day, every day, getting out there, beating the odds. So in closing, the most important part, forgot to tell you about this. This is my jumper leads. So through all this, this is where they put the chemo and gave me stem cells. They gave me through these jumper leads, which is it goes into your vein here, into your jugular vein. It's called a J-line. And that's how they put things into your body and also take your blood to see if the stem cell is working. The interesting thing is, my wife never liked these jumper leads, so sex was out the question. Didn't want these things flapping around, so that was a big problem. So when things are coming to the end is that when they take these jumper leads out. And this is how long it is. Look how long it is. It goes all the way into your it gets inserted through a general operation, and then you have to get it pulled out. And once it's pulled out, you think things are going to go from better to much better. And it's a terrible thing to shower with it all day. It's hanging out and it hangs down here, and it really is a pain in the butt. But at the end of the day, we're drinking a glass of champagne, because let me tell you, bone marrow cancer, or multiple myeloma as it's called, there's no cure. Understand, there's no cure. So my goal, and you think you've got a serious goal, my goal is to live long enough so they can find a cure for this terrible cancer. People can talk about stage 4 brain and this has got no cure. This is a long journey, and I've got to be positive till they find a cure, and I'm sure they're going to find a cure, and I'm going to give them every bit of help. I've started a multiple myeloma fund so they can help people, and currently I've got a friend that I met. She's a school teacher. She had to decide between pills or food, and she decided on food, and she's writing in Facebook, guys, I'm out of here. Can't afford the medicine, and I'm going. So I'm going to try my hardest to raise funds for these people and help people less fortunate than myself. And I hope that inspires you, and thanks for listening.
Well, thanks, Oscar. Yeah, definitely very inspiring, and also just quite amazing. I mean, the challenges that you've been through, and it appears to me that you've been standing up for the whole presentation. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah, quite phenomenal. So there you go. So, and this was just not even a year ago that you were man down, and you're back, and you're back to, as you said, walking 2 hours and 40 minutes a day. That's from being down and out. So what an amazing comeback. And I think that's probably one of your descriptions that people have used about you over the years. Always the comeback kid, winner time after time after time, and putting it to the test again now. So yeah, truly inspiring. Thank you for your story, and really appreciate your time, and the fact that you drove back from the crew to join us this evening. Really appreciate that too.
Yeah, I'm very happy to answer some questions, and glad that you learned. And as I say, the most important thing is that you can be inspired, and you can overcome these obstacles and these hurdles and these potholes in life, because they are going to be there no matter who you are. Everybody thinks they've got the perfect life, but not everybody's got the perfect life. You can make it perfect by really going out there and testing your body. I mean, when I won my 12th title, I just about died on the finishing line, and that's what you have to do sometimes. And I just hope I don't have to die before they find a cure.
No, absolutely. Yeah, wish you well with that one. So, right, folks. Yeah, if you'd like to ask some questions, you can put up your hand, or we'll unmute. I see there's just a couple of comments coming through. Farming by Faith, which is Peter is asking if you'll coach him. I'm not too sure whether you coach farmers, Peter, Oscar, but
I think in life if you can just take experience, and this is another brilliant story I had. You can learn from anybody. You can learn from a paddler. You can learn from a washed-up golfer. I learned, and I've been paddling for 45 years. I was in the Sea of Galilee, the Canoe in Israel, and this lady at 65, been paddling 2 years, said, "Listen, Oscar, I sit like this with my both legs on one side because this, and this." I said, "You know what? You're 100% right." From that day on, I learned from a person that had been paddling 2 years how to improve my paddling. So, and that you get never too old to learn, and you're never too clever to learn from anybody.
Fantastic, love that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's always something to be gleaned from somebody else's knowledge and experience if you're open enough to it. So, couldn't agree with you more. Right. Yeah. Anyone? So Leonie says Oscar's newest nickname is O+, and he certainly lives up to it. There you go. So Oscar, you've been given a new nickname. Right, Trevor. Yeah, you're in the darkness there, but we can sort of see the glint on your glasses. So go for it.
This is Africa, and I'm staying here. If Oscar can stand there, I'm staying here. So listen, I just want to tell you, I learned to get out of Oscar's way as a junior when he was swimming with that water polo ball. And Oscar, you'll remember those days. You had to get out of his way because he was all blooming arms and legs, and he had about 5 arms and 53 legs, and then he stopped for nothing this way. But Oscar, if there's no questions here, you've got to tell them the story of the rugby side. I'm sure you've got a moment there, because that's just an indication of what an individual can do. But please, if anyone has a question to ask you first, just answer.
Yeah, I mean, the rugby story is always very interesting because South Africa is basically very rugby mad, and it was I was in matric, and you know, I'd already been a Springbok. I'd already been winning all over the world, and I couldn't believe that people didn't even respect me, or I didn't get the accolades that the first team rugby got. I had to actually spend my Saturday afternoons watching first team rugby. I said, "This is voice." And I was sitting, I'll never forget, with Andrew Walsh and Trevor Stapleberg, and I was sitting there. I said, "You know what? I'm sick and tired of this. I'm going to play Natal schools rugby." I mean, they choked over their jam donuts, which most people were having in those days. And they said, "You're kidding, but you don't even play. You in the D team, you don't even play. You're crazy. Why Natal schools? Just make the first." I said, No. I want to play for Natal schools." And again, it's the old story. Don't practice makes perfect. No, practice makes permanent. So I went out there, and I had a beam across my house, and I was playing lock, and I jumped every single day to try and touch this beam. Eventually, I touched it, got stronger and stronger and stronger. And again, I was fit, and I made sure I had all the attributes to make it. And lucky, the trial was at Kings Park, and it went on for 4 or 5 hours. I was the only guy running, so they had to put me in the team. So I went to Craven Week, and I went to Stellenbosch, and I met Doc Craven. Funny enough, he knew all about me, and spent a lot of time chatting to Doc Craven in Stellenbosch and his hometown, in sort of the home of rugby. So that was, again, I just changed focus and made sure I learned from other people. You're never too old to learn, and you can always learn from somebody all the time.
Excellent. Thanks, Oscar. I see Vernay is saying, how do you pick yourself up on a down day?
If I wake up, I know it's not a down day. It's just waking up. No matter how old I was, I mean, my father instilled it into me. He's a German. He said, if you're going to do anything, do it at 100%. So my life's been doing everything at 100%. I don't actually wake up and have down days. Although now, I don't know why it's happening. I feel stiff in the morning, and the wrong things are stiff. But I mean, my arms and my legs are very stiff. And I get up and I feel, okay, I'm going to go. And my wife said, "No, can't I drive?" I said, "No, I'm going to drive. I'm feeling good. What do you think this is? I'm not an invalid. I'm going to drive all the way there." And I'm always positive. I don't think I've ever woken up and said, "Oh, don't feel like waking up," or never. It's never happened. Because again, if you just got this positive attitude all the time, it's an on button, and there's no off switch in my life.
Yeah, and that comes back to practicing the right things, doesn't it? You practice that your entire life, so that's stuck. So practice, and there goes a glass of wine. So unless there's any further questions, I think we probably at the point where we can all wrap up. So Lee's just comment there. So Oscar, also appreciate that you have a holistic approach to life, and family is very important to you.
Yeah.
How have you made family a priority amidst all your work?
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing is preparation. So even when I was at a young age, I was doing water polo, rugby, canoeing, life saving, swimming, all these sports. And I was trying to work, which I had to do, and I was working at Sandlam and things like that. So what happened was I used to actually put time in for the children into my diary. It's the only way to do it. If you don't plan it, if you don't write it down, it's not going to be done. So I had to put time in there. So, okay, family time, no appointments. And I did that all the time. And again, obviously I spent a lot of time away from home, racing and traveling around the world, but always got time, always chatting to the family and making sure our family stays together. I've been married for 32 years, been together for 37 years, and I've got a son who's 29, Luke, and my daughter 26, Hannah, in London, and Luke's on the yachts. But again, we kept a strong family unit, and I think it's all about balance. And of course, the balance goes out sometimes. When you're trying to work too hard, but you've always got to bring it down. It's always much easier to work than to spend time with the family. And I found that it's always for me, when I was training so hard, working was much easier than going for a paddle. So you've got to actually do it.
Yeah, no, 100%. And yeah, marking off those times and making them sacrosanct, whatever it is, whether it's family time or training time or work time. Too many of us, I think, perhaps put those elements down somewhere, but then we allow them to creep, and then you've lost it. So super. Okay, fantastic, Oscar. Again, absolute privilege. Thanks so much, folks. If you want to connect with Oscar, his LinkedIn and Facebook details are on the website. You can head across there and connect in and get a sight into what he does as a coach and what he's doing with his foundation. I'm sure every bit will help. So please get involved. Please connect and see what
you can get through Famous Faces, which is also another Stuart Lee. You can book me for real, as I say, motivational talks and sales talks and all those kind of talks. I sort of marry them to what I need to say and to uplift the people and help the people around the world in South Africa.
Fantastic, yeah, and we really appreciate your time here today. And I think it's what a way to end off the day with some real power, some real insights, and then some real home truths about how to do great things. So Oscar, once again, thanks so much. Appreciate your time. Thanks, folks, for sticking with us. It's been a wonderful day. It's been